the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting
time. Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
Force. It
is
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience. Welcome one, welcome all, welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. The producer for our show tonight is the great one, the maestro himself, Mr. Craig Gibson. We're coming to you live via Love 97 FM. This is Tuesday, the 3rd day of February 2026. And if it's a Tuesday, you know the deal. It's maritime. Tick, 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 tick. Matters. We encourage that if you're driving and tune in with us, please do so cautiously and ensure to take your time in getting wherever it is you are trying to get safely. As the saying goes, drive to arrive alive. Excuse me. Our sponsors for the night show are 101 Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. For all your medication needs, check out my little cousin Shantia Heel McBride and her lovely team at 101 Pharmacy in Nassau and Island Care up there in the second city of Freeport. You can fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site 101pharmacy.com. That's 101 Pharmacy, all one word, all lowercase, .com. The 3 locations are East Street South, Charles Sanders Highway, and of course, Explorers Way in downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. At BMC, we provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. And let me take this time out to say good night, Auntie May! My auntie right there up in Freeport. Auntie May is 92 years and going to be 93 in 2026. Auntie May, you know we can't wait for that day, right? Ain't long now. He said that's what the monkey say when the butcher cut off your tail. Oh, ain't long now. Auntie May's going to be 93. You know, that's Maritime Matters #1 fan up there in Freeport, always listening in, always giving me feedbacks. And I say, boy, my Auntie May is as sharp as a tack. So good night to you, Auntie May, and continue to be just the #1 fan of Maritime Matters. Tonight we engage discussions on cruise ships, and more cruise ships. Discussions surrounding this topic shall include the following: icon of the seas, or star of the seas. And when you say of the seas, remember now, you got this company named Carnival Cruise Line, which is the largest cruise line in the entire world. Carnival owns more cruise ships than any other entity in the entire world. But Carnival don't own the largest cruise ships in the entire world. Because out of the top 10 largest cruise ships in the world, 9 of them belong to a company called Royal Caribbean. which happens to be the second largest cruise ship owning company in the world. And Royal Caribbean have all of their ships with the name and at the end of the name of the sea. So once you see of the sea, you know that's one of Royal Caribbean ships. And not only are they the second largest, they also hold the 10 minus 1 largest cruise ships in the world. There are only 3 companies with cruise ships more than 200,000 gross tons. Royal Caribbean holds about 90%. Then you got MSC Cruises, which only get 1. No, correction. MSC got 2 over 200,000 gross tons. And all the Royal Caribbean ships over 200,000 gross tons are larger than, well, the MSC has 1 cruise ship larger than 1 Royal Caribbean ship over 200,000. And then, of course, just joining that group, and just recently joining that group, would be Disney Cruise Line. And Disney didn't build a ship for Disney operations. Disney bought the ship already finished. You know what Disney had to do? Disney had to convert that ship because they wanted bigger cabins. So they stretched basically all the cabins. Then they had this big space in that ship that they wanted to use to put casino. Well, it was a casino. It was already, the space already allotted for a casino. The space is in place. And Disney said, we don't do casinos. We're family-oriented cruise line. We carry children and family. We ain't want nobody gambling on our ships. We ain't all about that. And I think Disney would be the only one of the major cruise lines that don't have gambling on their ships. Because cruises make plenty money from gamblers. But Disney won't go down that road. They won't put Mickey and Minnie and things like that. Right? So Disney take out that, because, well, they ain't take it out. They utilize that space to do other things they could do that fits in with their operation. So, the 2 very top largest cruise ships in the world, from the exact same mold, would be the Icon class, the Icon of the Seas and the Star of the Seas. And both of them are over 250,000 gross tons. You know, it's 250,000 gross tons for one ship. Let me tell you something. Those things are humongous. They're humongous. And that's the Icon of the Sea and the Star of the Sea, known as the Icon class. And the length of those ships, they're over 1,000 feet. Well, you got plenty of cruise ships over 1,000 feet. So these are 1,198, almost 1,200 feet long. Can you imagine that? Longer than the football field. Well, probably longer than the football stadium. These things are super huge. And they carry 7,600 passengers. One ship. You notice that 7,000 people coming to your dock. If you're on one of them family islands in the south, like Mayaguana, Inagua, Cat Island, Rumkey, you can imagine that. One ship come to hail you, but they got 7,600 people. Passengers now. I don't mean the crew, because you know crew coming to shore too. When you throw the crew in there, you got another 2.5. So you basically got 10,000 people coming to visit your little docking facility or your little town or your little island or whatever the case may be. And could you imagine that sometimes you get 5 or 6 of them in Nassau Harbor and each one of them got over 5,000 passengers? Why do you think we close to 30,000 in one day? Because these are monsters. So today we talking about cruise ships, and you can't talk about cruise ships and not talk about the largest cruise ship in the world, which is the Icon of the sea and equally the star of the sea because they are sisters. They call them, or they dub them, or they refer to them as the balcony-laden floating condominiums. And they balcony-laden floating condominium. In other words, these things are condominiums. They floating on the sea, and they all have balcony. You know why? Because one time ago, when they started this balcony thing, cruise ships never used to have balcony. Back in the 70s and early 80s, they didn't get no balcony. They started to get balcony like in the 80s, and they started with just one deck, but have balcony. So you got to pay extra for that deck. But nowadays, my friend, every single deck have balconies. And most of the cabins on the ship have balconies because they realize people like balcony. So they create, design, they make the ship loaded with balconies. And of course they sell. And these cruise ships, these monsters, as we refer to them sometimes, beautiful monsters, not the ugly set. These monsters have so much amenities on board. They just like any, well, they got more amenities than the regular hotel, eh? Well, I'd say. Because, they got theaters. Most hotels don't have theaters. You got them set in Las Vegas and the next gambling place named upstate there. They have theaters where people come to perform. I don't even know if they have movie theaters. Any hotel got movie theaters, but these ships got movie theaters and all. But they got the performing arts theaters as well, eh? They got fine dining restaurants. Mind you, they got plenty buffet and plenty regular restaurant. They also got fine dining restaurant with big names like what we know. Well, that's who's traveling. You get them kind of names in Nassau, right? Or Freeport or in the Bahamas. But yeah, man, they got some big, nice, fine dining from Italy and Europe and what that place name, Asia and stuff like that. Nice restaurants. Well, of course, you pay a little extra to go now, but they got spas. Spa for massaging, spa for get your nails did, get your hair did, whatever. Spas pile up like that on them ships, right? They got fitness centers. You could go in their gyms. And you got machine on top of machine on top, and they keep them nice and clean, and they the freshest and the latest model machines you could find. These cruise ships ain't come to joke, right? When you go on these cruises, you can't on. They got casinos, well, except for Disney, eh? Pile up like that. Sports facilities again. You talking about gyms and that type of thing. You got basketball court. You got rock climbing. You got all kind of sporting facilities on board the ship. Some of them got amusement park attractions. So these cruise ships, these are not only floating hotels, they're floating attractions. And once you book to go on one of them, man, you could pick, choose, refuse. You got agenda with show after show, this kind of thing going on, karaoke going on. These cruise ships ain't playing, right? And that's today's modern cruise ships. And like I said, the icon of the seas and the star of the seas are the two largest in the world, and they followed very closely, right? Very, very closely by ships like Utopia of the Seas, Wonder of the Seas. And there would be like close 236, 238,000, almost 240,000 gross tons. And you got ships like the Symphony of the Seas and the Harmony of the Seas, and they would be the ones that were made before the very first one of this mold, which is the Oasis of the Sea. And following closer, that would be the Allure of the Seas. Those two are in the same class. So you got the Oasis, the Allure, and then one step up would be the Symphony and the Harmony. One step up would be the Utopia and the Wonder. And then the biggest 2 would be the Icon and the Star of the Seas. And then there would be the 2, 4, 6, 8 largest in the world. Then you get one from MSC called MSC World America. That one is 215,000 gross tons. But it's gone over 200,000, eh? And following the MSC World America, we would have this one we talked about with Disney, the Disney Adventure, 208,000 gross tons. And after Disney Adventure would be MSC again with World Europea or Europa, right? Now World America, of course, for the Americas, World Europa for the European group category, but that's a category ship they call it. So again, these are all of the largest ships in the world, all of them over 200,000 gross tons. 20 years ago, you wouldn't dream they would have a ship going over 200,000 gross tons, eh? Now they someone had for 300,000 gross tons. You know, Carnival can someone kick in and start. They're big operation. And then with the next, New Asian Cruise Line can start. They're big operation. So this ain't about to stop no time soon. But those would be the largest cruise ships in the world. And Disney just buying that 208,000 gross ton. That one, you know, was converted for Disney. And their maiden voyage is set for next month, the 10th of March. And where you think they could be operating from? They're operating from this side of the world, you know. Mind you, they came over here. They stopped in Freeport just for a little quick stop. Left Freeport and they gone to is it Everglades? I think Port Everglades. No, that's Disney. You know, they gone to Port Canaveral. And then they would have left there. Now they all are actually going through the Panama Canal. And get this. This Disney Adventure, the largest Disney cruise ship in the world. Now, when this is built to carry 9,000 passengers. That would have been the ship that carries the most people in the world. Although it wouldn't have been the largest ship in the world, cruise ship, it'll be the most passengers. But that's why I tell you, cabins is a little tight. So Disney decided they want bigger cabins than that. And they did a lot of modification. Oh, it cost them billions. But they got it the way Disney like it to be, right? But still a super huge, they call it ultra large ship. And so Disney is now going through the Panama Canal, and she would be the largest cruise ship or the largest ship to ever go through the Panama Canal. You know, they just expanded and they could take, they had Panamax and they had post Panamax and they had ultra Panamax and they got something else and I even know what the Panamax thing is, right? But Disney is the largest that ever, and they're going through there right now, I think, right now. Now, next on our agenda is the Amsterdam, the port of Amsterdam. Amsterdam is the major port in Holland. Eh? You got Amsterdam, you got Vandam, you got what the next place name? A couple of places in Holland, right? But Amsterdam is the one where they got, you know, the most famous red light district. Some must like to go down there. That's to check out the red light district. But anyway, Amsterdam decide now they're going to ban cruise ships. They don't want more cruise ships come to Amsterdam. Mind you, they only get one at a time, you know. But now they want none. Because they said a cruise ship is causing a disturbance. They bring in so much people and they polluting the environment. And so come 2035, this is what, 9 years from now? They quitting the cruise ship coming in the city center of Amsterdam. Because they have more concern about over-tourism, which means the cruise ship carrying so much people that you can't hardly walk on the street no more. People backing up to each other everywhere you turn. Because, you know, even without the cruise ships, the red light district in Amsterdam And all those, they got them pubs in Amsterdam where you could go smoke grass. Y'all know what is grass. Yeah, dope. It's legal in Amsterdam. Drugs legal, prostitution legal. Amsterdam is them city where people who like to do wickedness like to go. So right now, Amsterdam, because they have so much people coming for the frolicking, are having issues with the cruise ship bringing those next couple thousand. Can you imagine one cruise ship brings 6,000 people in Amsterdam? The streets flooded. So they saying come 2035, get your last 9 years in. Because we could wean you down and smaller ships and whatnot. And then come 35, we want more cruise ship passengers in Amsterdam. Because you're all polluting our air and you're all overcrowding our streets. You can imagine that? And we here in the Bahamas getting all these cruise ships while places like Amsterdam turning them away. They don't want nothing to do with them. You know how long it takes for you when you're on a cruise ship. I've been to Amsterdam on a cruise ship before. I've been in Amsterdam on a plane before. Or the red light district, that ain't easy, right? But of course, I no freak for the red light district, man. A little up in age for that. But it's exciting to go and check it out if you ever get a chance. Yeah, well, yes. Woman and man. It's very interesting stuff. They got some good history there. You learn a lot about this, how they got set up the way they set up, right? But we ride on that cruise ship for about hours in a canal. So you're not on the ocean and you're not at the dock, but it take hours to get from the ocean to the dock in canal. I wonder if you ever reach the dock. And then when you leave, you wonder if you ever reach the ocean. You can take that long ride back. So I think that's part of the reason why they really don't care for cruise ships to come in Amsterdam at all. So they said they'll have, as of 2027, no more than 100 cruise ships per year. So that's like one every 3 days. And that's like what, twice a week? 3 times sometimes? Averaging 52 weeks. 100 calls. 2 calls a week. They turning away cruise ships. And want one day every day. And worry about that money. They don't want you to overcrowd them. Number one. And number two, they don't want you pollution. They figure they got enough pollution going on with all the nonsense they doing in Amsterdam. And plus, as of 2027 or at the end of 2026, into 2027, they're going to make it mandatory that whenever your cruise ship coming there, you turn off all your machinery and use their shore power. You know where their shore power come from? Windmills, wind energy. President Donald Trump say, those windmills are nonsense. They kill the birds. Boy, but they're all over Europe killing the birds. Because that is their natural way of weaning themselves off fossil fuel. And when you get energy from windmill, you ain't putting no carbon in there. So what they're saying is as of next year, or as of the end of this year, once you reach that dock, you plug in and use high energy. Pay us. And I think right here in Nassau Harbor, we opting for a similar thing where we're providing natural gas. But you know what? I don't think that's a good idea. Because most of these ships are converting their engines to use natural gas. So they'll already have natural gas on their ship. And why would they plug into your natural gas if they're providing their engine already with natural gas that they get from cheap on outside of the country? I don't know what's going on, but it is what it is. Now, another topic we want to touch upon, and I say touch upon because time is moving so fast, is the French Riviera. They want to limit the amount of cruise ship calls. Just like how Amsterdam got them coming twice a week. The French Riviera, they want to limit the amount of cruise ships. So you could have they saying an average of 2,000 passengers per day. So again, they talking about small ships, eh? Even they want a big ships. Either 2,000 passengers a day, or in a single day you could have up to 3,000 passengers. But that day still have to average out over the year to be at least less than 2,000 a day. So while you might have up to 3,000 in one day, one of them other days you better have less than 1,000 so you could balance that off. That's what they said. And the French Senate, the senators, the politicians in France, they adopted an environmental tax on cruise ship passengers. Not on cruise ships now. I don't understand. Well, okay. The cruise ship got to pay the tax. But it depends on how much passengers you get, because you're paying for every single passenger on board your ship. I don't understand that. If it's an environmental tax, how the passenger could be. Anyway, that's the way they did it. They proposed a tax of $17.50 per passenger per visit. So like some of them come to the Bahamas and they stop to their private island, then they stop to Nassau, then they might stop to Freeport or whatever the case. Every time they stop, they got to pay their $17.50 per passenger on board the ship. If that was in France. And we've been toying this thing around for a little while as to how are we in the Bahamas going to levy an environmental fee for ships entering our waters, ships clearing in the Bahamas to do business. Man, them said who passing through because they don't be alone. But if you could stop, then you got some environmental issues, eh? And we know you to sneak some of that stuff in our waters. We know you're putting carbon in our air. So we want to levy an environmental fee. Not only on cruise ships. Not only on cruise ships. And not per passenger. We ain't trying to go down that road, right? It's per ship. And we may say, based on the tonnage of your ship. Because, the bigger ship carrying bigger engines. And they put more carbon in there because they're using more fuel to make them engines and generators run. So based on your gross tonnage, is one of the things we could use, or your length overall, is one of the things we could use. When we get down to the nitty-gritty, and this ain't nothing that is legislated or even discussed at the legislative level as yet. But we had a town hall meeting last week by QC, and this came up. We want to see an effort to protect our waters from the pollution from ships putting garbage in the water, ships pumping sewage in the water, and many of them do that, and ships polluting the air. We saying, for us to keep our place looking clean and pristine, we will come up with a figure per foot or per gross ton that every ship, whether it be cargo or passenger, would have to pay per entry. Or should that be per port visit? Because they can enter in one port and they still in the Bahamas and come to another port. That means they can stay even longer, eh? So we might get like them said in the States, in Europe, and say per port visit. And then we want to put that money into the Treasury, and our Ministry of the Environment, once we see how much money coming in the Treasury from those levies, will have that amount of money taken out of the Treasury and put in their budget so that they can now start paying for people to have companies to clean up the shoreline, to make arrangement to pump out the holding tanks on these small boats, even on family islands if you're using a barge. And this is the way we got to go, eh? But we can incentivize our people to do these things. We need to keep our waters clean. We need to make these people who come in to visit and have fun and doing a little damage pay for it. Because we got to clean up behind them. And so, yeah. the French Riviera, the French Senate is saying for every port visit, $17.50 per passenger. Boy, that's kind of steep, eh? You know, the $17 a passenger. Our air tax is what? About $25, $30 per passenger. This thing more than half our air tax. So with our air tax plus this, it'd be like $45 per passenger, or around $45 per passenger. But that ain't no bad, eh? You all say we can't get no money with the cruise ships. And this happening elsewhere in the world. Their water can't be clean as ours. But you know, they tried that foolishness. I call it foolishness, but it ain't foolishness, right? But they tried to levy this environmental tax, I remember, in Hawaii. Was it last year or year before last? And when they tried to do that in Hawaii, they got away with it for a while, and then the cruise ship put Hawaii in court. And they sued the Hawaiian government and got their money back. So I don't think Hawaii was successful in making them pay no levy for environmental, because I think, as I remember what I was reading, Hawaii was unable to tie the knot between are they spending this money they're asking for to keep the environment clean. So you gotta have systems in place where you paying somebody to clean up the beaches. Because you know, you go on any beach, you see all kind of excess things, and they're necessarily coming from cruise ships, but they're there, right? Little bottle this, can that, things all over the waterfront. So we would pay somebody to keep the waterfront clean on all our islands. And then those boats would go and anchoring all over the place. We will have a barge that could come and pump your stuff out. We don't want you pumping that in the water. We don't want our fish eating that stuff out your bathroom. Right? So that's how we got to package it. So we could verify that we're doing something with this money we taxing you. We don't want to be like Hawaii would come. They just want the money. No, we got to show how we could be using this money. Ladies and gentlemen, listen to Maritime Matters. On this show, we talk maritime. We are just getting set. Mind you, we are almost halfway through. I don't know why this time has gone so fast. I could blame my producer for speeding up the hands of time. You're laughing at me. But we talking so far about cruise ships. And we've been talking about the largest cruise ships in the world. The Icon of the Sea and the Star of the Sea. They're the largest two. And they followed closely by Utopia of the Sea and Wonder of the Sea. And they followed by Symphony of the Sea and Harmony of the Sea. And of course, they followed by the two first super or ultra class cruise ships that the Royal Caribbean put out, which were Oasis of the Seas and Allure of the Seas. They're the very first two ships that were built over 200,000 gross tons. And then MSC got two now. They got MSC World America and MSC World Europa. And then, of course, Disney got the Disney Adventure. And those would be all of the ships that are over 200,000 gross tons, the largest cruise ships in the world. Eh? And we talk a little bit about how Amsterdam is saying by 2035, they ain't want no more cruise ship coming in Amsterdam. No, carry passing to somewhere else to find a red light district. Don't come to Amsterdam. We talk about how the French Riviera want to limit the amount of cruise ship calls so that the average would be under 2,000 passengers per day. And in any single day, you could go up to 3,000, but you can't go over 3,000. And again, the French Senate adopted an environmental tax. Well, they're about to adopt this tax, right? They're in discussion now with this tax. And it's set out to be $17.50 per passenger per port visit per cruise ship. Big bucks. And we said we might look at that to see if we could do something similar to that, right? And then they had this little piece on how Port Canaveral just nudged out the port of Miami from being the busiest cruise home port in the world. Now, you know, we got the big three. We got Miami, Everglades, and Canaveral. those three average about 20 to 23 ships, cruise ships, doing home ports in their area. And they're the three largest anywhere in the world. So sometimes Miami have like 23 ships when the other side only got 21 and 20. Sometimes Canaveral will have 24 ships when the rest got less. And right now, about a month ago, Canaveral nudged out Miami to be the busiest because they had the most ships home porting in their port because they added one or two little things. And then they talk about how Philadelphia is starting to construct a home port cruise terminal for that area. So this cruise thing getting huge. Well, it ain't getting huge. It's been huge, right? But it's only getting bigger, especially after COVID. Remember, they during COVID, they couldn't really sail because, you know, to have everybody in an enclosed ship and one of them get COVID, that can spread like wildfire. So they had to all stop for that year and a half period, and which really took a dent on them. Cruise ship industry is losing some I think $50 million a day or something like that. Between they was losing big bucks, right? And we want to talk a little about the Bahamas cruise ship private islands expansion. Because in the Bahamas, in case you wasn't really watching, right? You got to stay watching these things. These private islands are popping up left, right, and center. They're expanding like crazy. We know that they started out like around in the 80s. They had one or two. And then when Disney came around in the late 80s, they decided they could do their own. And then that keep expanding now. Carnival got, Royal Caribbean got, MSC got Ocean Key. We got NCL, Norwegian Cruise Line, they got Stirrup Key. And everybody got their little private islands. But now these private islands, most of them have provision for one ship. But now they starting to expand, you know. At Coco Key, they used to anchor. They had no dock. Now they built a dock, and guess what the dock could do? The dock could accommodate 2 ships at the same time. 2 of the largest, now you know Royal Caribbean have the largest ships in the world. 2 of the largest cruise ships in the world could come to the dock at Coco Key the same time. So they're averaging like 2 a day. Well, I shouldn't say averaging, yeah. But they got 2 more than they have 1. Every day. And next door to them, Norwegian Cruise Lines were basically anchoring straight through from the 80s. Late 80s. Stirrup Key. You know what they're doing now? They just built a dock. But based on my understanding, I think they could only carry 1 ship. I don't know why. But now they got sometime a ship come to the dock, and they still got one on anchor where they used to go. So they still have 2 ships in one day sometimes. Dig that. I don't think that'll ever stop. Because the demand for cruise ship berthing worldwide is increasing. Because some areas like in the Greek islands and in Amsterdam and in the French Riviera, they don't even want no cruise ships. But guess what? They are making cruise ships like 3 and 4 every year. These big, massive ones. Big, pretty things. And they need more. So we here in the Bahamas, we farting around like all we doing is sitting on our hand. Because you know, from the 60s, Nassau Harbor could have accommodated small cruise. You remember the Carnival and the Festival and them kind of. They were like almost dinghies to these size cruise ships they have today, right? Sometimes we used to have 13 and 14 of them in the harbor. One time they were so small. But things have morphed over the years. And now we got big, big ships. But while the cruise ships decided that they can make provisions by buying private islands and putting cruise ship facilities there, you know what our government did? They still doing building their doors. Ain't no government from the 60s decided they could put a cruise ship berthing facility anywhere else other than Nassau. Isn't that a shame? For the cruise ship to buy private islands and put docks. And the government just watched them doing it and still watching them doing it. And I don't even think the government have a plan in place to put one dock on one family island. Because it's only Nassau and Freeport, but Freeport ain't a government owned. So when is the government, okay, I think but 2 or 3 weeks ago we talked about Maguana having a plan, and that ain't a government. That ain't a government. That's a private entity want to do a PPP to put not only a cruise ship dock, but they want to put a container terminal and a village. So this something big. This ain't just the government putting a dock for cruise ship. Do you know the impact one cruise ship could have going to a family island if the government was to put a dock there that we the people money built, and when the cruise ship come there, we the people making the money off the dockage. We the people making the money off the tours. They ain't want no private entity owning these docks. We want the government to set up a plan where every single family island would have a dock that the government, and we don't want the government do it by going to the World Bank and borrowing $200 million like they do when they want to buy Defense Force boats. No, we ain't want it done like that. We want the people in our country, the Bahamians, own all the shares. We got enough money to buy millions of dollars. Hey, who you think? Excuse me, Lord, I must need to take a break. Who you think come up with all the money when Nassau Cruise Port wanted to modify and upgrade? They got money from the Bahamian people. Who you think came up with the money when APD, Arawak Port Development? You know how much money they give people? I was trying to get more shares. They give me plenty, but no, you only can have so much. You can imagine. So if the government come up with a policy and a plan to put one cruise ship dock on every single family island and say, any interested Bahamian who want to invest in this venture, we're going to hire outsiders to come and run it, because we can have a board just like you have for APD. Just like how you could have people come and run the airport. But we can use Bahamian investment money, and we can allow Bahamians, the regular Bahamian, to buy shares. You can imagine. We, the people, own all those docks. When the cruise ships go there, we, the people, will be making the money. And that's easy to do. We can start with one like Morgan's Bluff. Right there, ready, right, good. Ain't much dredging to do. The dock basically done built. All we got to do is tidy it up. Might cost about $5 million. Right? And that's a modest might. Might only cost $3 million, because the thing is already there. We only got to do a little bit more dredging and beef up that dock a little bit. And that good to go for 2 cruise ships. Make the turning basin a little wider. We got, well, you know, we don't talk about all these places like Drakesell area, right? We talk about Devil's Point, Stocking Island, Port Nelson, Landrill Point, Columbus Landing in San Salvador, the lighthouse in Inagua. We talk, but we don't talk about these things, and the government ain't got no bunch of dummies. They can look at the map and see where's the best place to put docks, just like how these cruise ships doing with the private islands. And you can imagine the amount of people will leave Nassau to go back home, because now they got a viable job and they can make more money. They could create their own system of tours. All of the blue holes and the wild hogs and the crabs and the beaches untouched. Come on, man. Why are we such a lousy bunch when it comes to governing this country? And that's from the 60s. So I ain't leaving nobody out. PLPF and them, well, I think nobody else had no chance yet to govern the country. But he ain't leaving none of them out because all of them go on this long stretch and none of them have no plan to put no cruise ship dock nowhere. And that's the simplest thing. Watching the cruise ship lines do it over and over, proving it. But we ain't putting that. The Bahamas could become another Eastern Caribbean. Because every Eastern Caribbean country have a cruise ship dock. So every Bahamian island is just as big or bigger than those Eastern Caribbean countries. So we could all have a dock. And cruise ships could do a 7-day cruise in the Bahamas alone. Do you know how much money they would save? Dang, I spent all that money for fuel to go from one port to the next. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we need to roll. That's how we need to roll, right? You're listening to Maritime Matters. And on this show, we talk maritime. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, producer for the night, Mr. Craig Gibson. Of course, we are going to our first break, and when we return, we will take this argument on this cruise ship deeper, deeper, and deeper. And we'll have the lines open up for you to call in and give your views on how we can proceed.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Welcome back to Maritime Tick, 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 Tick Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and we're moving into our second and last segment because time is ticking and talking away. You're listening to Maritime Matters, and on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters is weekly at 17:05. That's 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The primary purpose of our show is to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds. And tonight we're talking cruise ships. The phone number to reach us, should you wish to get in on the discussion during the show, is 326-8255. That's 326-8255. To hear a replay of the show or any of our previous shows, simply hit us up on our YouTube page, That's Maritime Matters Bahamas. Just like I love you, go to YouTube on your electronic device, type into the search box Maritime Matters Bahamas, and you will see a litany of our shows just pop up. You could pick, choose, refuse which one you want to watch, when you want to watch it. Listen to. We ain't got no video. We only got audios. You could listen to any one of them at any time, over and over again, and you could just keep getting out and load. Yeah? So let's talk maritime. As you know, we are dealing with cruise ships tonight. And we were talking about the largest set of cruise ship in the world. See, back in the 80s and 90s and whatnot, we started off with, you remember the ships, the real beautiful ones that started to make cruise ships do things was Carnival. Carnival came out with, what it was? They came out with Fantasy, then the Ecstasy, and all the rest started for, and they were all like 750 feet, and they were all like around 70,000 gross tons, 55,000, 60, 70,000 gross tons. And they all had 3 thrusters in the front, 3 thrusters in the back, so they stopped taking tugboats. Because remember now, when cruise ships used to come, they used to call them cruise lines. They were deeply laden, they were sluggish. They only had them slow turning engine, and they didn't have 0 thrusters, so all of them needed tugboats. And of course, the tugboats used to be stinking up the harbor with all that smoke, eh? And the cruise ships didn't like that. It made them look ugly when they come in port, right? So what they did, they found out there's a way to move the ship sideways. So they incorporated into the hull of their ship little small engines, they call it, that actually cause the ship to move sideways instead of forward and backwards. And according to what you do with your thruster, you could thrust to the left or thrust to the right. And so ships started to have like a bow thruster. Mainly the cargo ships. And then the cruise ships started to have a bow thruster and then 2 bow thruster. And then they started to have like 2 bow thrusters and 1 stern thruster. So they could spin like a top in one spot. And then Carnival came with this bright idea for the Fantasy class, where they had 3 thrusters in the front and 3 thrusters in the back. So they never taken no tugboat nowhere, right? And then they had the regular engine and of course the rudders. So they could do all kind of things to do a ship. They were highly maneuverable. And now these big, huge, massive things we call cruise ship, they don't really carry thrusters like that no more. Mind you, some of them still have thrusters, but you know what they got now? They got what they call azipods. They got the engine on a stem coming from the hull, through the hull, coming down. And then the propeller on that stem could turn 360 degrees. And they got ports in the front and ports in the back. And so those are the same things that hook up to the main engine. So they're very, very powerful. And so what they do is they use the ports instead of thrusters. And they are more maneuverable and powerful than even the smaller cruise ships. So ladies and gentlemen, cruise ships have come to the state where tugboats is a thing of the past. Only in emergency, if they have to come out of a port, because if the wind gets so strong, even they're trying to go, because these ships have so much freeboard. What is freeboard? That's when they turn sideways, how high they are and how wide they are. That's a lot of space for the wind to hold. And because the wind could hold all that space and push it, they need all this power. But they can only hold that up to certain wind force. You can remember Mother Nature don't play. And so they now have these azipods, and when they come into harbor now, they're not coming in if the wind is like more than 30, 35 miles per hour. Because why? It's just too dangerous. The ship has so much freeboard, and it's like it'll be like something that's because they don't have that deep draft compared to the height and the size of those monsters. Because if they have the deep draft, they can't get in the harbors. So they have to have respect for the freeboard and what the wind could do with it, no matter how powerful the engines might be. And that's why you see those big monsters say, they ain't coming in if the wind over a certain amount of miles per hour. And usually 30, 35 is enough, right? And then not only Nassau Harbor, hardly any harbor. But Nassau Harbor a little tight, Freeport Harbor works. So that's how they roll. Now to recap, we got the icon of the seas and the star of the seas, which is the two largest in the world, eh? They are 250,800 gross tons each, over 1,198 feet long, and they carry 7,600 passengers maximum each. So you got a little city on the sea. And you know, these days they're getting bigger and bigger. Again, the number to call if you want to run this discussion, 326-8255. 326-8255. So they call in these big, massive, beautiful, what Mr. Trump to say, beautiful bill, big, massive, beautiful floating things, balcony-laden floating condominiums. We started out with a single deck with verandas. Now all the decks have verandas. They got a lot of amenities like theaters and fine dining restaurants, spas, fitness centers, casinos, sporting facility, amusement park attractions, etc., etc., etc. And they have over 10 of these cruise ships that are over 200,000 gross tons. Starting over the icon of the sea, star of the sea. And when we say of the seas, we talk about Royal Caribbean ships. Eh? They call all their ships, once they give it a name, is of the sea. Because they figure they rule in the waters. Utopia of the sea, wonder of the sea, symphony of the sea, harmony of the sea, law of the sea, oasis of the sea. And that's all of their over 200. Mind you, they get plenty more ships now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that's all the ships they got. I'm saying they have all those ships over 200,000 gross. They're the largest ships in the world. And then the only thing in that same category, but not as big as them, are the MSC that built two ships, MSC World America and MSC World Europa. And then, of course, the Disney Adventure just came out, and Disney didn't build that ship. They bought that ship already built. They converted it. And that one is 208,000. All those ships are over 200,000 gross tons. They're the big, super, what they call ultra large cruise ships. Anything under 200,000 could be large, but they're not ultra large. We discuss the fact that the port of Amsterdam, or the city of Amsterdam, they are calling to ban cruise ships by the year 2035. They just figure, you all cause too much pollution, and you all is just disturb our situation with all them people you all bring in. Man, we don't get plenty tourists. We don't need all them tourists injected in that one couple hours from your cruise ship. Some of you all come in and bring 6,000 people. We already got our streets flooded. Our red light district got plenty people in it. All our bars and things, but we come and you smoke your little cushion ping. They got plenty people in it, and all y'all doing is causing a mess. So we ain't want y'all here, man. We ain't need y'all. Boy, that's something, eh? They turning away money. And then you got the French Riviera. French Riviera being the southern part of France. You get Cannes, and you got what that part name? I forget. Somebody know, please tell me. But the southern part of France where they have the cruise ships go into to make calls, they're saying that we really don't want cruise ships here because they pollute the place, and our place is like high end. We don't need no cruise ship passengers mixing up with us and they ain't spending no money to begin with. So that's how they rolling. They ain't looking for you to be coming to them because they getting a head tax. They want visitors who spend more than that. And they want high-end visitors because that's a high-end place. You got to have plenty of money to be down there. And the cruise ship people, they already spending their money on the ship. So when they come ashore, they ain't much spending, right? And so they are now saying, stay away. Or if you come, you only want so much passengers per day. You don't want a bunch of ships in here with a bunch of people. Then you got the French Senate. They're now saying, we want some money out of y'all. For every passenger on your ship, anytime you're stopping in one of our ports in France, which is mainly the south of France, because the north of France ain't got no big ports like that. We want $17.50 per passenger. And we will label it environmental tax because you polluting our air. They ain't saying nothing but the water, This is just for the air pollution. So as soon as ships can find a way to convert from using fossil fuel and using like hydrogen or nuclear and they ain't gotta pay that no more because they'll be putting no more air pollution in there. No more carbon, No more carbon emissions, as they call it. Port Canaveral nudged out Miami last month in the amount of ships that are doing cruise home porting. What is cruise home porting? Cruise home porting is like when you join the ship to do your cruise, you got to join it somewhere where the cruise ship done let people off. They taking all their supplies, all their linen, all their food, everything they need. Because they have a terminal or big warehouse with all these things. And every time the ship come, they take off all the dirty linen and they put on all the clean linen. And when they come back the next time, them said and wash, they transfer again. So I don't want you to think they be washing them things on board the ship. They ain't got enough capacity to wash all those things for all those cabins. So they keep the dirty ones. When they get in, they just trade them over. Same thing with food. They top up on everything they need when they're doing their home ports. And while all that going on, what you doing? They taking your luggage from you. They putting it through the security scanners and all the rest of that. They put it on the ship. They taking you, checking your passport, making sure you clear for all the ports they get and yada, yada, yada. And then they getting you on board the ship. And all this going on during that what they call home port exercise. So where do most of these cruise ships do their home porting exercise? All over the place. They got some in Europe. They got some in the Far East. Singapore is coming around to be a big one. They got some all over the U.S., especially Florida. But the three largest in the world, largest home ports in the world, happen to be right on the doorstep of the Bahamas. Not in the Bahamas. We did some home porting during COVID. You remember those two, what is the name? Regions? I can't remember the ship's name, but they were doing home porting in the Bahamas and taking people to Long Island and places like that and coming back. So they couldn't go to the U.S. or go nowhere else, but they could just stay in the Bahamas, and they was doing that, right? And that was happening, but it was costing them a lot of money. And people always ask, why can't we facilitate cruise home porting in the Bahamas? Like in Nassau or Grand Bahama or whatever. A simple reason, my dear friend. Why we do not or we cannot, well, we could. why we do not, or why cruise ships don't come here to take on passengers and let off passengers and all that. Because that'll give us a big boost if we can have all them people passing through our airports coming to the ship, and when they get off, they go back. Because sometimes they want to stay overnight before they go back, and they're in hotels and all that. I can tell you it's a big deal, right? But if they come to do that in Nassau, then they have to get all their supplies transported by sea from the U.S. to Nassau. All the spare parts, all the linen and food and everything. So that's an added cost. And it'll cost that ship we're trying to home port in Nassau or Freeport almost twice the amount it'll cost if they do it in Florida. Because Florida is linked to the chain of goods being transported or being shipped. They could find almost anything, and they don't have to cross the waters. They ain't put on no ship for it to get to them. And that's kind of the reason why it's advantageous. Plus, you got to think now. Most of their passengers are Americans. And if 90% of the passengers on cruise ships that come to the Bahamas are Americans, that means now the American got to take a flight from the U.S. to the Bahamas to join the ship. You know how much taxes involved in international travel? How much those tickets for those airlines cost? But they could drive from anywhere they want to drive from in the U.S. to Florida, put their car in long-term parking, and just hop on the ship without paying that extra airfare or those extra taxes affiliated with the airfare. And join the ship home, put the home button on that side. So those are the primary reasons why it would not be a sensible idea for a cruise ship to try and home port in the Bahamas. Mind you, we close. Everybody know that. So they wouldn't even consider another Caribbean country, even the Bahamas, because we dead close. But that's an extra cost for the passenger, plus that's an extra cost for the goods to be shipped from the U.S. to the Bahamas. So that's a no-no, right? That's a no-brainer. And their home porting, they got the three largest: Port of Miami, Port Everglades, and Port Canaveral. They're the three largest home port in the world. Each one of them got over 20 ships that live there, in other words. They leave there to do their voyage, and they always come right back to take on their supplies, let the people off, put the new people on, go out for another trip, come back, and that's their home port. And any one of them is larger than any other home port anywhere in the world. And all of them, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Orlando, are right on our doorstep. So guess what? We should then be the largest home cruise destination ports in the world. Our country should have more cruise ship terminals than anywhere else in the world. Because we got the biggest or the largest three home cruise ports or cruise home ports in the world. And once they leave, they got to pass us. Either they're coming through us or they're coming around us to go anywhere else. And that's how we roll it, right? So we now need to be sensible enough to set up shop in our country to make all of our family islands attracted by the government putting a dock on each family island and using our money. Use it, because I ready to invest. All the government got to do is set up a committee to deal with the funding of these projects. And we will find Bahamians more than happy to invest their money in these projects. But you know what government usually do? We all know what they usually do. They usually look for their boys or the people who supporting them or the people who bigging them up to say, look, why don't you put something together and you can collect the money when this cruise ship come in. That company you all get together and form that and you all can collect the money. And the other regular Bahamian don't even get an opportunity to invest in it. Although you know that investment will have to work. All it got to be is set up by the government and using the funds from the regular Bahamians. And that's why we had so much argument about APD. Remember when APD was being set up and people was like, well, how come they only give the Bay Street boys the opportunity to own whole 20%? Remember that? No, they own 40%. And the government owned 40%, and then that's 80, and the next 20% they say, okay, now Bahamians, y'all could buy this next 20% of shares. But each one of y'all can only get so much. And the argument was always out on that too much preference was given to the Bay Street boys. But you know, my view was always simple on that. My view is this. If you ask the Bay Street boys, who own all the ports downtown, the Tropical Shipping, the Seaboard Marine, the Betty K, and the ones who own Arawak, Stevedore and all, those facilities, you are asking them to close shop and all of them got to now move to Arawak Key. If them brothers is making profit running their own show. So if the government wants them to close shop and move to Arawak Key, shouldn't the government give them more ownership than the regular Bahamian who didn't have no shares in them operations or those operations that they own? So the government say, okay, we for you all to move, we can give you all some benefit, we can give you all some advantage. All y'all together, we can give 40%. The government owning the land, we can keep 40%, and the Bahamian people can get the next 20%. I'm not sure that was a bad idea. Because if the government didn't do that, we, the people, wouldn't even have that 20%. Because those Bay Street boys would have still owned all of their facilities, and we have no ownership at all in it. And that was my argument. Some people think that ain't a good argument. But my thing is, if I own something, and you telling me I got to close shop and move and come here, you should be giving me some incentive, eh? That's all I said. Anyway, 326-8255. That's the number you need to call if you want in on this discussion. We are talking maritime. You're listening to Maritime Matters. Tonight, we're talking cruise ships. Now we got, as we were saying earlier, a lot of private islands in this country that are owned by the cruise lines or the cruise ship companies. And those private islands, if you ever get an opportunity to go and see them, and I can tell you, I've been on. Is there any I didn't go on? I think I've been on all of them. Because the most recent one, oh no, I'm in a carnival site up in Grand Bahama yet. But the most recent one being prior to the one in Grand Bahama. Prior to carnival name, Key. The one in Eleuthera called Lighthouse Point. Disney owns that. I have a very good friend who works there, and he actually took me on a tour. He took me there and he toured me around. He showed me the whole operation, and I was so impressed. And that's when I realized these fellas, even in using BBL, they got solar. They solarized the whole place. Smart, sensible. But the beauty of this place, accommodation for the staff. I go in the cafeteria and had some good food. I must tell you, the food was good. And you go to Coco Key and you get beautification kind done. You go to Stirrup Key, and you get lagoons and condos, and let me tell you something. Those private islands, they are so beefed up for beauty that even if you're on a cruise ship, you have to come ashore and get some of that. And now, while the cruise ship is to be anchored off, they now all come in the docks. But guess what happened? Those docks, where they go, are still being built. Some of those docks were not there 10 years ago. Most of them was in there. People had to anchor off. So the first, which one was the first one to have a dock? The first one to have a dock, I think, was Disney, you know. Disney had a dock at Castaway Key. And they never anchored. They used to go in all the time. Disney used to have a ship there every day. So when they was building Lighthouse Point, they already know they need a dock. They pick an area where they could put a dock, which is really on the western side of that point, because you know our winds are normally coming out of the east. So you want to put the dock in an area where the wind ain't directly pushing the wave on you. And we got every island have an area you could do that with, well, except Andros, right? But you put that dock, and then I think the other facilities like Coco Key was very busy. Half Moon Key, they used to have a ship there, but they all drop an anchor. Stirrup Key, drop an anchor. And there were the other three areas. And those three areas now, and then came along Ocean Key. Now Ocean Key always had a dock, because Ocean Key is where the Ragonite used to be shipped out by them big bulk carriers. So they already had a dock and they already had a channel. So all they had to do is expand and improve the dock and dredge the channel a little bit more, right? So Ocean Key was something like what Morgan's Bluff is today. They used to have bulk carriers going in there for water. So they had to do too much to bring that around. But you know what they now doing at Ocean Key? I just found this out. I happened to find this out because I was on a plane going to Freeport, and I met this gentleman. He's from Wales. I never meet nobody from Wales before. Well, I had a couple of friends from Wales when I was in Dartmouth doing officer training, right? But I met him on the plane, and he's going from Nassau. We ended up talking, and he told me he worked for this company that building docks at Ocean Key. I said, dock? I said, Ocean Key get a dock? He said, oh yeah, they get a dock. But they're building two more. Man, I almost fainted at you. Ocean Key have a dock for cruise ship, but they want two more docks, and they intend to have 3 cruise ship calls per day. You hear what I say? Ocean Key to have from 1 cruise ship a day to 3 cruise ship a day MSC ships. Carnival built a dock by Celebration Key. Now before this year out, they have a second dock, because that one dock now have 2 cruise ships. How much you think they have when the second dock? 4 cruise ships a day at Celebration Key. You know how much passenger, and they averaging over 5,000 each, right? That's over 20,000 people at Celebration Key every day. And you could tell me our government don't need to now seek out to put ports in them all the family islands to try and keep up with this big rush of it. Because when they go to their private island, they can't go from Ocean Key to Celebration Key, because Carnival ain't gonna allow them MSC to use their facilities. They can't go to Stirrup Key because Norwegian Cruise Line ain't gonna let them use their facilities. They can't go to Coco Key because Royal Caribbean ain't gonna let them use their facility. So 3 of them going to Ocean Key every day. You don't think the government should put docks in place where they can leave Ocean Key and go to another Bahamian port, or another 2 or 3 Bahamian ports? Let's think. what do you call it? It's a no-brainer. Excuse me. This is a no-brainer. And there's no reason why our government shouldn't make arrangement for us to own a government dock or a people's dock in every single family island. So that these cruise ships, when you have 3 every day at Ocean Key, can have an alternative. They could go somewhere else. Now see, Carnival got celebration. Keep Carnival also got Half Moon Key, So they can leave there and go to Half Moon Key, and that's 2 different stops in our country, and still don't come to Nassau. Because I want you to know, a lot of them don't even want to come to Nassau. Why you say they don't want to come to Nassau, Captain Bain? Hey, Nassau is too congested and too much crime and this and that and the next. They only come in because that's the only alternative most of them have. So let's give them a whole heap of alternatives. Let's give them Exuma. Let's give them Cat Island. Let's give them San Salvador. Let's give them Inagua, Meguana, and Crooked Island, and Auckland. Everything. Give them all. That's the most sensible thing any government, and we got election coming up this year. So PLP, FNM, and COI, take note. What are your plans for providing cruise ship docking facilitation in our family islands over the next 5 years? Whoever coming in, I want everybody to answer that. Let's see who got the best answer. And then that may determine who we want to vote for, eh? What is your intent to augment this cruise ship rush that our country could benefit so much from if we set it up properly? Let the Bahamian people own the docks. Let the Bahamian people own the tours. Let Nassau become a place where most of the family islanders move back to the island so they could wake with these cruise ships. How simple and easy is that? That's a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. But that's where we need to go in our country. Because if our country was in the Eastern Caribbean and Barbados was where we are, Barbados probably had about 20 docks for cruise ships. Because they know the 3 cruise home ports, the largest ones in the world, are right there, and they need facilitation. We just sitting on our hands like we don't even realize what's going on. Who are the advisors for our government of today? We got the Bahamas Maritime Authority. They're based outside of the country, so they ain't checking. We got the Port Department. They ain't dealing with no cruise ship. They deal with local boats. They don't even understand what's going on with cruise ships. And they need to, because that ain't their portfolio. The Ministry of Transport, they twice as lost. Because they ain't on that with no ships. They got to deal with ships, they got to deal with road traffic, they got to deal with this, they got to deal with that, they deal with energy. So, we need, during this campaign season, we call it silly season, let's call it sensible season when it comes to finding out about who have plans or who want to put plans in place to ensure that all of our family islands have a dock for cruise ships paid for by the people, benefits going to the people, and people can now go back to their family islands and find viable jobs so they can make more money and live on their family islands. They don't used to the mosquitoes biting them up. Ain't nothing for them. And then again, that will be a country that's leading the world with cruise ship calls, leading the world with cruise ship facilitation. And then we can start thinking about them environmental tax and stuff, eh? So we got plenty of money to make from that. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Maritime Matters. And on this show, We was talking maritime. We talk a lot about cruise ships. We get no calls. Maybe you all don't like this topic, cruise ships, so you all say you feel like calling. I don't know. I really don't care, you know. My thing is, I only want you to hear me. I want you to listen and see what the possibilities are. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. My producer for the night, or our producer for the night, none less than the great maestro himself, Master Craig Gibson. Our sponsors for the night: Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, 101 Pharmacy, Island Care Pharmacy. Our callers for the night, 0. We had no calls. That's cool. We had a good show. And most importantly, I thank you, our dear listeners and supporters, because I got plenty calls later on. Boy, that show was something else. Yeah, ain't nobody called, but oh, that was good. Yeah, I learned a lot. I didn't even notice that. Which is fine. I have no problem with that, and I love it. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, as always, Maritime Matters, tick, 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 out.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in. Then I'll watch them roll